They built the cities, raised the children, dug the graves, and disappeared. It was the same story over and over again. Generations of people living out their lives in the shadows. And she was one of them, walking rapidly down a crowded high street even though she was going the wrong way. And she had realized she was going the wrong way quite a while ago, but thought it would look awkward if she abruptly turned around, moving against the tide of people. And so some lingering ancient instinct told her to keep walking, walking and walking, until she suddenly pretended to receive a phone call, then slowly turned around and headed back. This was an ordinary evening in the year 2025. When the history books are written, they will most likely focus on all of these guys, but bury the lives of people like her, or him, or her. We who never seem to achieve anything, but without whom nothing at all would get done. As ghosts of history, seemingly living inconsequentially in the background, but whose lives secretly move the world. It was the 1st of May, 2025, a Thursday, and this ghost, named Phil, had just left her place of work, which she despised, and was on her way home, which she despised as well. Her entire existence didn't make sense. She had calculated through the pluses and minuses of her life several times and come to the factual conclusion that the numbers just didn't add up. The pluses in her life, namely that she was relatively healthy, had food to eat, shelter, and no serious daily pains, were drowned by the never-ending minuses. The daily morning alarm clock, her flatmate snores at night, the cold of the bathroom, the stings of her workout which she had to do in order to avoid even more deadlier stings, the plowing through of 8 hours of dull, meaningless work but kept her alive so she could keep doing more dull, meaningless work. Her life's account was anything but balanced, yet she kept ticking along, trying to find a solution. But she knew her time was running out. Her DNA, like all human DNA, had been encoded with one fundamental drive, one sacred mission: either find a way to function positively in this world, or self-destruct. She was on her way home from work, taking the long route again. The scenic detour. Her legs felt like overcooked spaghetti, yet she went on due to some faint residue of rebellion telling her she didn't have to be efficient all the time, that she could waste energy if she wanted to. She found a park bench and popped open a can of margarita as quietly as possible, then began scrolling through a personalized media feed which currently showed red carpet photos of the Met Gala, the ruling class of the attention economy playing dress-up while the commoners drooled in delight. She came across a picture of Rihanna in all black, rocking a baby bump like it was an accessory, and immediately felt her mood spike. Rihanna was awesome. Rihanna was cool. Rihanna got to have it all. Rihanna had been a great constant, her own life running quietly alongside Rihanna's. Like two tabs open in the same browser, fusing their milestones and ups and downs, at least in her head. Rihanna was of course completely oblivious to this ghost's existence, but that did not matter. She knew enough for both of them. She knew so much about Rihanna's life that she was able to tune into her frequency and see through her eyes, celebrate her victories, cry over her failures. But recently that had no longer been enough to justify her own existence. She had become painfully and increasingly aware that she would never be Rihanna, that she had managed to fuse their lives over the years but had only managed to hardwire her brain into spectating for a living. She sucked the last drop of liquor from her can and suddenly felt exposed, like the world had been watching her sit still for too long, like staying still was another failure she was guilty of. Having no place to be, no one to see was embarrassing. So she quickly walked home, pretending that there was someone there eagerly waiting for her.
Time was running out, and she could feel it in every cell of her body.
Her programming was malfunctioning. She was sleeping less, eating worse, drinking more. She came from a long lineage of women who hadn't solved this puzzle of their lives, who had simply procreated out of protocol and then quietly powered down in their early 40s. But she was desperate for something else, a different ending, a way to debug the code, to find the line where it all started to go wrong. She opened her phone, again, not because she wanted to, but because it was easier than sitting with the silence. On her feed were thousands of digital avatars ranting about the new American Pope and how nothing was holy anymore and how everything was poisoned and corrupted by politics. She looked at a picture of the new Pope and thought, he had rather kind eyes, and he seemed like someone that hadn't chased power but simply stumbled onto it. She stared at his face for a long time, trying to read into his movement patterns, attempting to unlock the workings of his soul through his outer tics. How did he do it? How did he manage to live for so long before finally coming into his own, before achieving something worthwhile? He only peaked at the age of 69. The joke quite literally wrote itself. It was easy for the Pope to go on living. He was the focal point of a different kind of attention economy, the link between 1 billion people and eternity, at least in his mind. That will keep one going. No wonder they all got to be so old. But people like her, people like both her parents, were as dead as doorknobs by the time they were 65. After passing on their DNA, their usefulness had ended. No point clinging on, sucking resources. And she was expected to do the same, shrivel away quietly unless... That morning, she missed her alarm, left her wet laundry in the machine for the second day in a row. Rebellion was never pretty. Her limbs moved, carrying her to work, but only out of habit. At work, her screen glowed with spreadsheets and passive-aggressive emails. She stared at it like the static on a dead television, hoping for something to emerge from the noise, waiting for a miracle, a sign from this guy's guy, a ghost. But she only saw this ghost, not the kind that haunted people, but the kind that people forget they saw. She splashed water in her face and cringed at her thoughts, cringed at the terrible cliché of it all, then quickly went back to work. They were right. The only way this daily drudgery made sense was if there was a prize at the end of it all. Billions of people had accepted that kind of programming. Heaven, Valhalla, Utopia. Same different souls. But it worked. There was a method to the madness. Adding a big number at the end of life's equation made the entire calculation add up, if you believed the number was real, that is. But she didn't. All her lived experiences taught her that this wasn't how the universe worked. Things didn't build up to a final big payoff. That was simply a work of fiction. But there had to be a non-fictional end to this story that worked too. She was watching a grown man with a beard and long hair singing about an espresso macchiato. It was all very confusing and strange. Eurovision.
She's watching the performances on YouTube, 2 tabs open, vaguely paying attention.
The Mustache Man's song was growing on her, but she hadn't voted for it. She had never seen the point in voting, but if she had, he would have gotten hers. She quite admired the Coffee Man, standing under bright lights while people clapped and screamed and waved flags they only half believed in. He probably felt important. That would get one out of bed in the morning. The power of moving people, showered in validation, yes, that was one way of functioning on this planet. But that was also the fatal flaw in the system. If only the validated feel good, lived a life worthwhile, then what happens to the validators? Everyone wants to be on stage, but someone has to clap. Someone has to sit quietly in the dark and approve. The showmen rule the world, pronounce themselves the chosen few, while the rest of us shrivel in the dark, each clapper invisible, thinking themselves replaceable, but in fact every showman is replaceable too. For every empty stage there are thousands of eager fools desperate to climb, and for every great showman there have to be great validators, molding them, perfecting them with their claps and their boos. Indeed, the showmen were the real slaves, scrounging for approval. If the clapping stopped, poof, they would just cease to exist. She paused the video and stared at the frozen face of the Mustache Man mid-note. She pitied him. She had watched the video 3 times now and giggled each time. For every great showman, there was indeed a great validator. He might get to be on stage, but she sure as fuck didn't make him forget who put him there, and all she had to do was sit back and wag her fingers. And at times do slightly more than that, clearly. Maybe among the other things she had cracked that day was the code, or at least part of it. There is no one without the other. Showman and validator, applause and performer, everything builds on each other or disintegrates. That is the code running on our brains, running the universe. Pick a part, play it well, or deviate from it at your own demise. The universe doesn't work towards a single big payoff, so all we can achieve is moments of harmony between its interchangeable, moving parts. She pressed replay one more time and giggled from the depths of her soul. And so on the 31st of May, a bright Saturday, she spent the morning in bed, regally liking and commenting on everything from evening gowns to relationships to the war in Ukraine. She fully tried out this life of a validator, getting up in the morning and pronouncing judgments that all showmen throughout history had and will always have to abide by. Even her work now didn't feel as dreadful, but simply the price of entry to this ultimate game of world building. And so she ghosted on, moving decisively through time and space, leaving nothing tangible of herself behind, apart from the civilization which she built.
The end.